At the height of Germany's industrial boom, skilled craftsmen in Remscheid risked everything spinning 7-ton sandstone wheels, the only way to sharpen giant saw blades used worldwide. One wrong move could crush a man or send shards through the factory walls, and breathing the dust meant early death. Why did so many choose this lethal craft, even as modern machines stood idle beside them? The answer reveals a world built on sacrifice. Subscribe for the lost story behind these deadly stones. The new sandstone wheel arrives by freight train, flagged as a heavy load, 7 tons of Eiffel stone, cut and shaped in the quarries miles away. In the yard outside the Remscheid workshop, workers gather around the massive cylinder. Timber beams are laid out on the floor, forming rails to guide the stone's path. Steel rollers are wedged underneath, and a hand-cranked winch is bolted to the far wall. Every movement is measured in centimeters. One misjudged push could send the stone off its rails, shattering the edge or pinning a man against the wall. The master stands at the head, directing each step. Apprentices, barely out of school, follow his orders with tense precision. Crowbars bite into wood, levering the stone forward. The wheel creeps across the beams, the winch cable groaning under the strain. No one speaks above a whisper. The risk is obvious. A slip, a snapped rope, and 7 tons of rock would roll unchecked through the shop. At the edge of the grinding pit, the pace slows even more. The stone must be aligned exactly over the axle supports. Helpers kneel in the pit, guiding the descent with bare hands as chains and ropes lower the cylinder inch by inch. They work directly beneath the suspended stone, trusting knots tied that morning and the strength of aged beams. Sweat runs down faces as the master checks for wobble, tapping the rim with a hammer to listen for a clear, ringing tone, the only sign the stone is still sound. The axle, a length of heavy iron, is slid through the bore and locked with flange plates. If the fit is off by even a few millimeters, the wheel will vibrate at speed, threatening to tear itself apart. After hours of adjustment, the stone finally comes to rest on its bearings. The shop exhales. The old wheel, worn down to a fraction of its former size, lies discarded beside the pit. The new monster stands ready, a silent promise of both livelihood and danger. For the men who just survived its installation, the next risk is already waiting, bringing the stone up to speed for the first time. Subscribe to see more forgotten crafts that built the industrial world we inherited. In the grinding halls of Remscheid, the debate over old versus new was more than nostalgia. Apprentices watched as the master ran his hand along the sandstone wheel, nearly 2.5 meters across. Even with modern abrasive machines humming in the next bay, the big natural stones still dominated the most critical jobs. Synthetic wheels, aluminum oxide, vitrified, even the latest ply machines could grind faster and cost less to replace. But for wide saw blades bound for North America or tropical plantations, only sandstone would do. The reason was in the steel itself. Sandstone ran cooler. Its porous surface, always bathed in water, kept the blade from overheating. Synthetic wheels cut harder, but they scorched the metal, leaving temper marks and even rough tracks that could rust. For customers, a bright polished finish from natural stone was proof of quality. Orders still specified stone ground as a requirement well into the 1970s. Masters defended their craft with pride. The guild trained each apprentice to listen for the right sound, to feel the vibration through the axle. Precision mattered more than speed. The pay reflected that. Schleifer earned more than most factory workers, sometimes double the average wage, because the risks and the skill were just as high. A single mistake with a 7-ton wheel could destroy a year's profit or end a life. Yet for those who passed the Meisterprüfung, the master's exam, the work was a badge of honor. Their names were known to customers overseas. The same hands that risked everything to hang a new stone were trusted with the final grind on blades that would shape forests and harvest fields half a world away. Side by side, the old and new methods stood in uneasy alliance. Synthetic wheels filled the shop with noise and speed, but the big sandstone wheel was where apprentices learned patience. The master would tell them, A blade that runs hot is a blade that fails. In Remscheid, tradition and technology collided every day, but the stones kept turning because no machine, yet, could match the finish that buyers demanded. Subscribe to see more forgotten crafts that built the industrial world we inherited. The iron drive belt snaps into place, and the new sandstone wheel sits silent on its axle, waiting. An inspector checks the alignment again, eyes flicking to the gauge. The target is precise. The rim must reach a surface speed of 15 meters per second, fast enough for the wheel's outer edge to travel nearly 50 feet every second. At this speed, centrifugal force pulls outwards with relentless pressure. Any hidden flaw, a hairline crack from the quarry, a bruise from a careless hammer blow, a misaligned axle, could become the fault line that splits 7 tons of stone in an instant. No one stands in front of the wheel. The shop doors are bolted. Only the inspector remains, shielded behind a thick post, watching the numbers climb as the wheel accelerates. The air vibrates with a low, rising hum. For 30 minutes, the stone spins at full speed, alone. This is the test that no one dares to watch up close. In the past, stones have burst without warning, sending fragments through brick walls and into the street. The inspector's hands rest on the emergency brake, but if the wheel lets go, there is no stopping it. When the timer runs out, the drive is cut and the wheel slows. The inspector listens for new sounds, ticks, clicks, the dull thud that betrays a growing crack. Only then do the workers return, faces tight, eyes on the rim. The next task is scoring. A 1.6-meter steel bar, called the ritzing iron, is pressed against the spinning stone to level its face. The bar screeches as it bites into the sandstone, carving away high spots and leaving a trail of fine white powder. About a centimeter of diameter disappears in this first pass, hundreds of pounds of stone ground to dust in minutes. The dust hangs in the air, thick as smoke, coating every surface. Helpers withdraw, doors stay closed. Only the man with the ritzing iron remains, breathing in clouds of crystalline silica. The particles are invisible killers, small enough to slip past the body's defenses and lodge deep in the lungs. Each breath carries the risk that will haunt these men for decades. The wheel is now ready for its real work, but the danger never leaves. It is embedded in the stone, the air, and every lungful drawn in this room. In 1971, the grinding halls of Remscheid stood at a crossroads. New safety rules and insurance demands pressed in from every side. The grinding masters, once envied for their pay and skill, now found themselves under scrutiny by inspectors and insurers who saw only risk, exploding stones, dust-choked air, men crippled by silicosis before their 50th birthday. The Berufsgenossenschaft, Germany's powerful industrial accident insurer, began to raise premiums for the old shops. Each claim for a crushed hand or a dust-damaged lung made the next year's bill steeper. Factory owners faced a hard choice: spend to modernize or close the doors. The pressure was not just local. The world still wanted Remscheid steel. Crates of freshly ground saw blades and sugarcane machetes left the workshops for ports in Hamburg and Rotterdam, bound for timber mills in the Pacific Northwest, plantations in Brazil and Indonesia, and shipyards across Europe. For decades, the phrase Barmies, stone ground in Bergisches Land, carried weight with buyers who knew the difference in finish and edge. Even as safer synthetic wheels and automated grinders took over elsewhere, overseas customers insisted on the old method: natural sandstone, hand-guided, water-cooled, finished by a master. The export orders kept the stone spinning long after economic sense or safety would have dictated a change. But the cost was mounting. Local newspapers began to question the price. One 1970s headline called the trade a death sentence for the stone grinder. In the Tool Museum on Haston Hill, a curator, grandson of a Schleifer, shows visitors the last great wheel, now silent behind a rope. He runs his hand over the worn face and recalls his grandfather's cough, the way men in the family measured years by the number of stones they survived. The wheel is a relic now, its story told in photographs, medical records, and the memories of those who watched the trade disappear. By the 1990s, only museum demonstrations and archive films remained. The workshops fell quiet, the knowledge fading with the last masters. Yet the blades they made are still out there, cutting timber, shaping furniture, holding the edge that only a Remscheid stone could give. Subscribe to see more stories of the crafts and workers who built the industrial world and the price they paid to do it. Today, the blades survive in timber, steel, and history, but the lives spent sharpening them remind us that industrial progress always extracts a price. As automation erases the evidence of these risks, the human cost behind every innovation is easier to ignore and even easier to repeat. Subscribe for more untold stories.